Today I am going to talk about Chenrezik and specifically the Chenrezik chant that we do at, on Zoom now about once a month. And Chenrezik is considered the protector of Tibet. His mantra, Om Mani Padme Hung, you will find people reciting it all over Tibet. You will find it carved in rock cliff faces. And you will find people have carved it in smaller rocks. And then you find these rocks in piles all over in Tibet. So Chenrezik is a very important Vajrayana deity. He is considered the embodiment of all the compassion of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 3 times and the 10 directions. And it is said, if you realize one deity, you realize them all. So if you realize Chenrezik, you realize all the deities. He is not separate from all of the other deities in Buddhism. Now the actual, and I should say this too, that they do this at KTD every evening at 7 o'clock, this same Chenrezik chant, followed by the Amitabha practice and the other prayers that we do in our prayer book. It's all identical to what is done out at KTD. We try to do things the way they do it at KTD, needless to say. Now, this chant, it starts with a short 2-line prayer that is going for refuge. We go for refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And the Buddha is an example and a teacher. The Dharma is the teachings of the Buddha and the practices of the Buddha. And then the Sangha is the community. Sometimes the Sangha is very exclusive, and it's the community of bodhisattvas, men and women that have experienced emptiness and therefore are considered exalted. A broader definition would be the monastic Sangha of monks and nuns and other teachers. And then the very broadest would be the Buddhist community, the people that are not only the realized members of the Sangha and the teachers and the monks and the nuns, but the people, the lay people too. So here it's a more limited version of the Sangha, which is these realized masters. And then after that, we have 2 lines expressing generating bodhicitta. And this actually has 2 aspects. I've talked about this before, so I'm going to be brief here. One is aspiration bodhicitta, which is the aspiration that whatever we do, and specifically in this case, this particular practice, is for the benefit of all beings. And then there is engagement bodhicitta, which is actually doing something about it. In other words, doing something to travel the path and be able to be of more benefit to all beings. So actually doing the practice and reciting the mantra and so forth is engagement bodhicitta. So we start with the aspiration and then we continue with engagement bodhicitta. And when we're doing these practices, we're engaging our body, speech, and our mind. Our body is that we sit in meditation posture, that we visualize ourself just before we do the mantra repetition in the form of Chenrezik in this case, and cultivating what is called sacred outlook, and that is seeing the external environment and beings in the external environment as also being sacred. Other beings are seen as Chenrezik, and the environment is seen as Chenrezik's pure land. We engage our speech by reciting the mantra of the deity as well as chanting the various parts of the practice. And our mind is involved because we are in a certain type of meditation and we're doing these visualizations. So the visualizations both counteract us seeing our physical form as impure and ordinary. Now, in this part of arousing bodhicitta, it talks about doing it, the engagement bodhicitta, through practicing the 6 perfections. And very briefly, the actual text says through the practice of generosity and so forth. But I believe in our version of the text, it's translated as the 6 perfections. And so generosity is used in this way, that before starting the practice, think that whatever goodness and merit I accumulate, I am doing this for others. And then when the practice is done, we dedicate the merit then to all beings. We don't just hold on to it. We've created a lot of good karma, which will cause happiness and pleasant situations in the future. And we want to share this with all beings. And also, the merit that we accumulate is the amount of merit that everybody participates in the chanting accumulates. So if you are chanting this at home by yourself, you accumulate the merit that you have created, and you can dedicate that. But if we're in a group, let's say there are 10 people in the group chanting, you accumulate the merit of 10 people. So you've multiplied your merit by 10 times. So it is actually excellent to do these practices in a group situation. The next paramita is discipline. And this is partially involved with our body, that sitting in a dignified manner, sitting up straight rather than leaning back against something, or slouching, or whatever. It might be a little uncomfortable to have your legs crossed, but it's doing the best you can to sit in a dignified manner rather than being casual. And of course, another part of the discipline is bringing your mind back when your mind wanders to other things besides what you are chanting about. The third is patience. And that is, again, not giving up during practice, bearing any difficulties, and over a period of time, not giving up on the practice and stopping practicing, no matter what your practice is, and bearing difficulties over time rather than letting them get the best of you and giving up. The next is joyful exertion. And it's really good if you can feel how fortunate you are to have it come in contact with this practice, to Buddhism in general, and how privileged you are to be able to do this practice. So if we look at our good fortune, this will help us generate and maintain this diligence or joyful exertion. We're actually extremely fortunate. We're in an extremely fortunate place in the world right now. The next is meditative concentration. And so at the relative level, it is paying attention to the words. This is a type of meditative concentration, paying attention to the words. When your mind wanders, come back to the words. And then doing the best you can to understand the meaning of the words. And doing the visualizations. The ultimate level is at the end of the mantra repetition, there is a dissolution of the visualization, and then we rest without beckoning the future or bringing up the past, the best that we can. And so this is a meditation with no reference point. It may be that it's only a flash, a matter of like that, and then thoughts come into your mind and so forth. But there is this gap at that point, and that is a meditation free of reference points. And then wisdom, the sixth of the 6 paramitas, is that understanding both the relative and the ultimate meaning, and gradually with practice through the accumulation of merit, that wisdom begins to appear. I think that's a good way of putting it. We don't gain wisdom of this type. We uncover it, because that wisdom, primordial wisdom, is always there. We just are not aware of it. Now, it's important to realize that all beings have the potential, the enlightened potential, Buddha potential. It's called Buddha nature. that everyone, even the most, you might say, the meanest, most depraved human being, and even animals, have this potential to wake up because they have Buddha nature. And it's hard enough for us to even think that we have Buddha nature when it's so easy to concentrate on our negativities. But this is a good way to think about it. When, if you are going through thinking about all the negative things that you have done, how you have harmed other people, how you've harmed yourself, and so on and so forth, and you just wonder if there's anything really there inside of you called Buddha nature, or if you're just fooling yourself, or maybe you think that these great teachers are not really telling you the truth. The very fact that you came to Buddhism means that you wanted to improve, you wanted things to change, to be better. And that's an indication of your Buddha nature, wanting to be happy and wanting to avoid suffering. It's really not any more complicated than that. So all of us have this innate goodness, Buddha nature. And I like to use the phrase Chenrezik nature when we are doing Chenrezik. The Chenrezik is inside of all of us. He is just buried, hidden, and we cannot experience him directly. And quite honestly, we don't recognize him when we do experience him directly. And we are experiencing him directly. We are experiencing our Buddha nature directly all the time. We just don't recognize it because of our confusion. So we need to acknowledge this quality within ourselves and within other beings. But on the other hand, I don't have to tell you this, but we all have defilements. We all have karma, habitual patterns, emotional upheavals that we need to be free of. And so these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are, you might say, shining examples of what is possible. It's really good to read biographies of the great Kagyu masters, and there are lots of them out there. The biography of Marpa, Milarepa, Talopa, Naropa, and so forth. Gampopa. There are lots of different biographies. I shouldn't say different. There are lots of biographies online of the 17 Karmapas. So it's really important to realize that other beings have done this, and that we can do it too. That we need to meet the proper conditions, and we have to be diligent and follow these other paramitas. But it is definitely possible. And in Vajrayana, it is the fast path. It happens much more quickly than through doing other Mahayana practices. So These deity practices in Vajrayana are extremely beneficial and powerful and excellent to do. The basic problem, you might say, with all sentient beings, including ourselves, is that we are fixated on an independent self. And as a result of that, we divide things into self and other. We take that which is not a self to be a self, and that which is not other to be an other. And once that happens, you might say we're off to the races with aversion and attachment. We become attached to whatever is pleasant, whatever the eye thinks is pleasant, and we develop aversion to whatever the eye thinks is unpleasant. And interestingly enough, it is not in the object. Some people love hot peppers. I do not like hot peppers. I do not go to the store, bring them home and eat them. I have an aversion for them. But it is not the pepper that has the aversion in it. It is the person that is eating or not eating the pepper that has the aversion or the attachment. And it is just with everything that we judge everything as being pleasant, unpleasant, or we become indifferent to it and ignore it. And these deity practices are intended to work at that level of dissolving this attachment to an I and seeing ourselves as separate and different and unique and solid. So we start out the visualization as we develop it with Chenrezik being above our heads and the heads of all sentient beings. And this acknowledges his superiority. He's above us. And so we have a white syllable palm, and I don't have a picture of it here to show you, but you can find it in the various transcripts of Rinpoche on the Chenrezik practice. And the palm is the essence of loving kindness, wanting to benefit all beings. And the palm transforms into a fully bloomed white lotus. Above that is the seed syllable ah, and this is the essence of the compassion of wanting all beings to be free. It's white, and it becomes a full moon mat or disc that lies flat on top of the lotus. And so this seat that Chenrezik will sit on in a minute is the essence of loving kindness and compassion. And they are the foundation of the path. On top of that, then we visualize a white pri, and this is the seed syllable of Chenrezik. It is glowing white. It's standing upright. It's facing outwards. And by the way, these visualizations are all made out of light, like a hologram or a rainbow in the sky, a reflection in the mirror. They're not solid. And this Hri is the essence of aspiration bodhicitta. From the Hri, multicolored light rays emanate, predominantly white because Chenrezik is white and he is peaceful. But the other colors are there too. The first thing that happens is the light rays go to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, their pure lands, and makes offerings to them. Then it goes downward to all sentient beings and brings happiness and well-being. So this is aspiration bodhicitta, wanting to bring loving kindness and compassion, well-being, and so forth to all beings. Now the light rays come back both from the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and from beings in samsara. They are absorbed into the Hri, and Chenrezik appears. So here are Chenrezik's features. He is brilliantly white, stainless. This is symbolic of his mind, never stained by selfishness, any of the emotional, negative emotions of attachment, aversion, indifference, pride, and jealousy. He radiates light, primarily clear white light, and then also the 5 colors. The 5 colors are symbolic that he can benefit beings in any and all ways necessary. That he's not just limited to peaceful activities, but this is his primary activity. He is a peaceful deity. His face and body are extremely beautiful. There's a captivating quality about him. That his smile is gentle, soothing. It's like a mother gazing affectionately at her child. It is said that the closest thing to enlightened love is the love that a good mother has towards her infant child. And his gaze is constant. He does not close his eyes and as a result miss something. His gaze is unceasing and it's to all. And the name, the Tibetan name Chenrezik means the all-seeing one. He sees the suffering of all sentient beings. He has 4 arms representing his activity. And the 4 immeasurables of immeasurable loving kindness, immeasurable compassion, immeasurable joy, and immeasurable equanimity towards all sentient beings, where he has equal love and compassion for all sentient beings. This does not mean that he seeks them as the same, one aspect of wisdom is discriminating wisdom, where you see the differences very, very precisely. But in seeing the differences between sentient beings, he still maintains an equal amount of love and compassion. So he is the embodiment of the four immeasurables, and he benefits through the activity of the four immeasurables. He has a total of 4 arms and hands. His 2 inner hands are joined together at the heart, like this, holding a wish-fulfilling jewel. The jewel is blue in color, and it symbolizes that his mind is never separate from the Dharmakaya. His right lower hand holds a crystal mala, or prayer beads. And it's continually moving. And the beads, of course, are in a circle. So this indicates that he is continuously benefiting beings nonstop, turning the wheel of enlightened activity. His lower left hand holds a lotus, and that symbolizes that he appears in various appropriate forms to bring beings in different realms, to benefit beings in different realms. And the lotus also symbolizes that he is free of stain. He has a total of 13 jewel and silk ornaments, which I'm going to enumerate here. And this symbolizes the 13 levels of enlightened mind. The 13th level is complete Buddhahood. The first level is the experience of emptiness. So the ornaments are, first of all, there are 8 jewel ornaments. It's a crown of the 5 Buddha families that is on top of his head. He has earrings. The elongated ears are an indication of an enlightened being. That's why these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have elongated ears. So we have 2 earrings. He has, but that earring counts as 1. He has 3 necklaces, a short necklace, an intermediate necklace, and a long necklace that goes down to his navel. He has jewel and gold armlets, bracelets, and anklets. Then he has a belt with jewels on it and a tip with bells on them. Those are the 8 sets of jewel ornaments. And there are 5 silk garments that he has. He has kind of a scarf that goes around the top of his head that holds the Buddha crown on. And then he has a cloth that kind of goes down his hair in the back. He has silk upper and lower garments, and then a silk sash around his waist. His hair is half tied up in a top knot, and the other half flows down his back. And he has a deer skin from a deer called the Tinasara. I'll spell this Tinasara. Tinasara. And this is a legendary deer that was known for never harming any beings and being willing to give up its life in a moment to benefit sentient beings. So this deer skin, which he wears on his left side, over the shoulder and down on his breast, it symbolizes tenderness and compassion. His feet and legs are in Vajra posture, sometimes called full lotus. And this is symbolic of indestructibility in benefiting others and the indestructibility of his enlightenment. He has a full moon backrest. And this symbolizes his continuous benefit to others and never turning his back on the suffering of others. He has, his body is not solid, it's hollow. He is transparent because he's made out of light. You could say it would be a bit like a light bulb, which also radiates light, and an unfrosted light bulb is totally transparent. And that's the way his form is, totally transparent. So you can see inside of him. He has no internal organs. So there's nothing to block inside of him. But what he does have inside are seed syllables. He has a white Om inside his forehead. Not on the forehead, but actually inside the forehead. And then a red Ah inside the throat area. And then a blue Hung a little bit below his heart center. And then at the heart center is a lotus, a white lotus, and a moon mat, and a white Hri. And surrounding that is his 6-syllable mantra, Om Mani Padme Hung. It is, the mantra goes around clockwise, and the letters are facing in. These are in Tibetan, the Tibetan alphabet. It starts with Om in front facing in, and that is white. Then there is a Ma, which is green, a Ni, which is yellow, a Pe, which is blue, a red Me, and then finally a dark blue Hung. So that is the setup in Chenrezik. And to begin with, he is visualized above your head on this lotus and moon throne. And well, I'm going to go on here. What happens next in the puja is that these three syllables, Om Ahung, and then the Hri radiate light. And they go off to all the Pure Lands, especially the Pure Land of Dewa Chen Amitabhas, to the Potala Palace there. And this is where Chenrezik resides. And we are invoking Chenrezik to come, as well as all other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions to come here. What's going on is that the visualized Chenrezik that we have been, you might say, building and describing is what is called the commitment being. The Tibetan word is samaya sattva. The Sanskrit word is the the Sanskrit word is the samaya sattva. The Tibetan word is damsikpa. The actual beings are the wisdom beings, the Yeshe and Jnana Sattva. Last one was Sanskrit, first one was Tibetan, but these are the actual beings. And so we invite the actual beings, they come and they dissolve into our visualization of Chenrezik above our head. So now our Samaya Sattva has become the actual Jnana Sattva, the actual Chenrezik. They come back in the form of very small, you might say, images, versions of themselves, and they dissolve into the visualization above your head, kind of like rain falling on a lake, snow falling on an unfrozen lake, that sort of thing. This is a common visualization to do. And to move ahead, then there are lots of parts that go on here after here, but I want to kind of move on, and I'll talk about this later. Then we do a prayer to Chenrezik, talking about his qualities and the different realms, the 6 different realms of samsara, what their suffering is, and making an aspiration that these beings be freed of their suffering. To go through them very, very briefly, you start with the realms that are the most painful to be in. And so they start with the hell realm, and it is anger and aggression that causes one to be reborn there. And it is a very unpleasant place to be born. You see the environment as being threatening, painful, and there are demons there that are constantly causing you to suffer and so forth. And so the aspiration is that beings that are in this realm that are totally engulfed and carried up by their anger will be reborn in Chenrezik's Pure Land, or Dewa Chen, which is Amitabha's Pure Land. It says either be born in Dewa Chen or be reborn in the Potala, Chenrezik's celestial palace in Dewa Chen. The next realm, which is slightly less suffering than the hell realm, is the hungry ghost realm. And it is extreme greediness and miserliness that causes one to be reborn in this realm. And the interesting thing about greed is not only do you want more and more and more of what you don't have and not wanting to give it to others, but you're so obsessed about not having enough and constantly wanting more that you can't even enjoy what you do have because you're obsessed with what you don't have. The animal realm is the next realm, and this realm we are familiar with because animals' karma is closest to us. What causes rebirth in the animal realm is a combination of indifference, denial, ignoring things, plus negative actions. The human realm is the one that we are in right now. And what causes rebirth in the human realm is a combination of wholesome and unwholesome actions, but there also is an aspect of discipline. It's not an accident to be born a human being. It's not something that just because you have a human life, you're entitled to one next time around too. You have to work at having enough good karma to have a human rebirth. So we're familiar with the human realm. And then the next realm is the jealous God realm. And here it does require a moral discipline to be reborn in this realm. There's less suffering here than the human realm. But your actions, your good actions in your past lives have been influenced by jealousy. And so in this realm, you have a lot of power and so forth, but you're also jealous of those that you consider above you. And these God realms are very, very pleasant places to be in. There is the full God realm, which is the next one, and this is the most pleasant realm of all those in samsara. And this is caused by keeping moral discipline, but also having pride, feeling that you have accomplished something and actually are a great person for having accomplished what you have done. Now, there is a great metaphor for these two realms that is when they picture these realms in the tree of life, you have the jealous God realm below the full God realm. Both of them have a lot of pleasure, but the full gods have more pleasure and are more powerful. And so there is a tree. It's a tree that only grows in the God realms. And it's beautiful, has incredibly beautiful, fragrant flowers. And the fruit just produces bliss. It's just incredibly wonderful to eat. And so this tree grows in the jealous God realm, but the branches that have the flower and the fruit on them are in the full God realm, so that the jealous gods cannot enjoy the fruit and the flowers and the bliss that they produce. And so there is always a painting of this tree with a jealous God with an axe in his hand, chopping the tree down, because if I can't enjoy this, nobody can. So after going through these 6 realms and making the aspiration that beings in them are either born in Dewa Chen or specifically in Chenrezi's palace, the Potala, then we get ready for the mantra repetition. And up at this point, we have visualized Chenrezi above our heads and above the heads of all sentient beings. Now we transform ourselves into Chenrezi and all sentient beings into Chenrezi. And light radiates from from us as Chenrezi, goes to these realms, purifies them all, again, purifies the beings, they become Chenrezi. And then we do the mantra, visualizing and imagining that the beings in all these realms are saying this mantra of Chenrezi with one voice, all together, or maybe one voice isn't the quite right word, together in the same voice. And so keep that. And as you are doing the mantra and your mind wanders, just keep coming back to that. You don't have to get discouraged or feel that you are not a good practitioner when your mind wanders. That's just more, what would I say, monkey mind. So just keep coming back to it and don't worry about becoming distracted. Just when you realize you're distracted, coming back to it. It's a type of shamatha. Be gentle, but be firm. And there are different dissolutions for this. The standard one is that when the mantra is done, then the person leading the chant, or if you're doing it by yourself, you'll pause and you imagine that the beings in the outer world in the 6 realms dissolve into light, and then that light comes back to you and dissolves into you in the form of Chenrezi, and then you from the bottom up and the top down dissolve into the Hri in your heart, and then the Hri dissolves from the bottom up to the top. And at the then you get to the very top part of it, and then it's gone, and then rest in that state without beckoning the future or the past or thinking about the present. And then as soon as a thought arises, immediately visualize yourself in the form of Chenrezi and feel that all other beings are also Chenrezi. This is kind of acknowledging what actually is. From our state of confusion, we frequently think that this is a fantasy that we're visualizing, but actually this is acknowledging what actually is. And so to maintain the thought that all sounds, whether they are pleasant or unpleasant, are the mantra of Chenrezik. And then whatever thoughts arise in your mind, try to regard them as just coming from the Dharmakaya, that this is the play of the Dharmakaya. This is difficult, but this is what is called a sacred outlook, or the pride of the deity. In this case, pride is not a problem. Pride is actually considered a good thing when we are maintaining the pride of the deity, ourselves as the deity, the surroundings as a pure land and beings in it as deities, and all sound being that of the mantra, and all thoughts and emotions and so forth as coming from the Dharmakaya, but not getting overwhelmed by them. And then after that, we have a series of very short prayers that in dedication of the merit and the aspiration to be reborn in Dewa Chen. And there's also a short aspiration prayer that bodhicitta may arise in all beings, and where it has already arisen, may it continue to grow and ever flourish.